Josh Lammert, and I'm interviewing Allan Hosier, 1300 South Oak Grove. He was born on February 23rd, 1927 in Edison, New England. Nebraska. We'll start off. What branch of service was you in?
I was in the United States Coast Guard.
Coast Guard. What was your rank?
Gunner's mate, 3rd class.
3rd class. And where did you serve?
I served in the African, European, and the Asiatic Pacific.
Asiatic Pacific. Cool. Okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
You enlisted?
Yes, there was married men with families that was in, and I had a neighbor that was on the draft board, and he told me that he could keep me out. But I couldn't live with that when them other people was all there, so I enlisted.
Where were you living at the time that you enlisted?
I was living on a ranch in southwestern Nebraska.
Why did you pick the branch that you joined?
Well, I didn't want to spend my time in a muddy foxhole and sleeping in the mud and water. And I knew I'd have a bed if I was on board ship, and that's the reason I took that. And the Coast Guard is very misleading because we was all over the world.
Not just on the coast, huh? Cool. Do you recall your first days in service?
Oh, it is rough. They reprogram you. They teach you to kill without remorse.
Really? What did it feel like?
Well, you're just beat down to nothing, and you don't feel like nothing. Nothing but to follow commands.
Is there any more you like to talk about your boot camp training experiences, or anything you want to add to that?
No, they was not very.
Pretty much sums it up.
However, I did take boot camp at Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, really?
And after a short while, we was able to make Liberty in New York, and New York was a very good Liberty town. We got to go to all the main shows there. We go to USO and get free tickets to any show in New York.
Cool. Do you remember any of your instructors or sergeants or whatever, drill sergeants or whatever?
Oh, they was.
Probably try to forget them, huh?
Yeah, they're the ones you try to forget.
Yeah.
Because they wasn't nice to you.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. How'd you get through that?
Well, I made it, but it was degrading.
Pretty degrading. Which war did you serve in?
World War II.
World War II. Where exactly did you go?
Well, we run convoys to Europe, and when the war was over with Europe, we'd just taken a convoy into Southampton, England, and the prisoners of war had the fastest way home. And nobody flew back in them days.
Mm-hmm.
So we took 3 prisoners of war and brought them back to the United States with us when we come. But they was airmen that was shot down at the last of the war, and they was in good shape. But a lot of them that had been prisoners for a long time, they was practically starved to death.
Really? What was your job assignment?
Well, I was gunner's mate, 3rd class. When I first went aboard ship, ordinarily you had to serve aboard ship for a year before you could go into anything that would make her rank.
Mm-hmm.
And chief gunner's mate took a liking to me first thing off, and he asked me if I wanted to be a gunner's mate, and I said sure. So within 2 weeks I was in the ordnance division as a gunner's mate apprentice.
Did you see any combat?
Well, of course the convoys we took to Europe, excuse me, the entire, that ship was commissioned in 1943.
Mm-hmm.
and its entire history in the Atlantic, taking convoys, they never ever lost a ship. There were ships sunk before them, and there were 6 ships sunk behind us.
Mm-hmm.
But they never ever sunk one of ours, and I never thought about it. Of course, submarines was our specialty,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd zigzag in and out around them. And the doctor told me back this spring, he says, "Well, that's the reason, 'cause you was good." Maybe it was.
Maybe so.
But if we could get a location on a sub, we could get him.
Uh-huh.
So they avoided us as much as they
As much
could.
as possible. Probably good. Was there very many casualties in your unit? It sounds like probably not.
Well, we didn't have any.
Uh-huh. Tell me a couple of your most memorial experiences.
I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Tell me about a couple of your most memorial experiences.
Well,
memorable.
probably in the Pacific when we found the 200 Polynesian men that had been brought from another island to that island to dig trenches in the mountains. We went in to disarm that island, and when we did, we found these 200 men there. Then we took them back to their rightful island and disarmed that island.
Cool. Were you ever a prisoner of war or anything like that?
No.
Were you rewarded any medals or citations?
No. They told us what medals we was eligible for,
Mm-hmm.
and they never ever give us any until about 3 years ago.
Oh, really?
And you could send in, and they sent them. So about 3 years ago was the first ones I was actually awarded.
Oh, really?
But they would tell us what ones we was eligible for, and we could get them, but they didn't give us any.
This is kind of the live segment of the interview. How did you stay in touch with your family during your time at war?
The only way possible was by letter.
Uh-huh.
And about the fastest you could get a letter was 30 days. When we was in New York, they went to New York. When we was in the Pacific, they went to Fleet Post Office, San Francisco, California.
What was the food like over there? What was the food like where you were stationed at?
We had good food when we was where we could get it. But in the Pacific, everything we had was either dried or canned.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys feel like you had plenty of supplies to work with?
Well, there's one time in the Pacific, we hadn't got near a supply ship. We was almost barefooted before we did. But as far as ammunition and food, we never lacked for it. We always had plenty of ammunition, we always had plenty of food. But we carried a tremendous amount of ammunition.
Oh, really?
And then we carried a lot of depth charges. That was our submarine
That was like,
getters.
Yeah. Cool. Was there anything special you carried with you for good luck, like any kind of memento or
Was what?
anything you carried with you for good luck, like a picture?
No, I was only 17 when I went in. I was 19 when I was discharged.
How did people entertain themselves over there?
Well, at wartime there was no entertainment.
No entertainment. What did you do when you were on leave? Did you go on leave?
Well, I went back home to my folks. I got to leave right after boot camp and come home, and then I didn't get another one until the war was over. And after the war was over, they still sent us back to New York. And then from there, we took them to the St. Johns River in Florida and decommissioned them. And then there's 6 destroyer escorts in a flotilla. And in wartime, every place one goes, they all go.
All right.
But after the war was over, then they split us up and we went all different ways. But when we come back to New York, we got together again, and then when we decommissioned them in Florida, the whole 6 of them was anchored and tied up together.
Interesting. Where all did you travel while in the service?
Well, we went from New York to England, and then we went to Cuba for maneuvers. I think we was there 2 weeks. And then we went down through the Panama Canal and went up to San Diego for just a short while. Then we went to the Pearl Harbor. And we was sitting in Pearl Harbor waiting for the invasion of Japan when the Japanese give up. And they had the day all set. We was going in 31 days from the day they'd give up was the day we was going in.
Mm-hmm.
And they had figured the least point of resistance on the island. But when they did go in, they found out that was the heaviest fortified of the whole island. And if we would have invaded, we'd have went straight into it.
Oh.
And the atomic bombs, that was the main thing that ended the war.
Yeah.
They was so devastating, they killed a lot of people. But if we would have invaded Japan, they would have killed a whole lot more Japanese than what the bomb or atomic bombs did.
Oh, really?
And there would have been one heck of a lot of us that wouldn't have gone home. They'd already give the word and said if we invaded, kill all prisoners immediately.
Oh, gosh. Do you recall any particular humorous or unusual events while you was stationed?
Well, I'm sure there was, but at the moment I can't think of it.
Not on the top of your head? Okay. You said you have some photographs. You like to talk about some of those on camera?
Well, we have a photograph of when we disarmed them islands. They would bring the rifles out to the ship and carry them below deck. In the first island that we disarmed, we took 34,000 rifles. And I have some pictures of the boats that they brought them out to us in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a picture of the 200 Polynesian people that was taken for slave labor that we took back to their own rightful island.
Mm-hmm.
But we was not allowed a camera in the war.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I have these pictures, one man snuck a camera aboard and took the pictures, and then after the war, why he sent them to us.
Cool. Did you keep a personal diary?
On board ship, I have a diary. Well, it's a log really.
Mm-hmm.
That tells where we was at it tells the date of every place we went and the date we left.
All right. Kind of keep track of everything that went on.
But I better back up on that too. I have that, but one of the other men kept it, and I copied it from him. So that is the way I come to have it.
Cool. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Do you recall the day your services ended?
Yes, that'd be the day I was discharged, but the memorable part was when the war ended.
Uh-huh.
And we was sitting in Pearl Harbor, and they had, destroyer escorts had a 36-inch signal light. All ships have a 36-inch signal light.
Mm-hmm.
And them things was a-shining in the sky and crisscrossing every direction. I do have a picture of that.
All right. Kind of cool. Where were you whenever, let's go with whenever the war ended? Do you remember where you were?
We was sitting in Pearl Harbor.
You said in Pearl Harbor?
We was waiting for the invasion of Japan.
Okay.
There was troops massed all over the Pacific for that invasion.
What'd you do in the days and weeks afterward?
Oh, I went back with my folks and went to farming, and that spring we had a big washout on corn, and we had a lot of acres of corn out, and we put in some long hours of replanting.
I bet. Did you ever attend school or take advantage of the GI Bill?
Well, they had a school for farm
Mhm.
boys, and I joined up and farmed it, or went to it, and through the summer, the instructor, he had a lot to do, so he says, what we'll do, we'll just make up these days and put them down as attending all summer long. Well, they checked on him during the summer, or on us, and found out we wasn't having any classes, and we had to pay it all back.
That's not.
Oh, I did. I did go to the National LP Gas Institute in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I graduated from it.
Oh, really?
And that was under the GI Bill.
That was on the GI Bill. But the other schooling you had to pay back because they didn't have to.
Sure did. It was a lot harder to pay back than it was to take.
I bet so.
Because dollars was big them days.
Oh, yeah. Did you make any close friendships while in the service?
Oh, yes. There was some that I kept correspondence with as long as they lived.
Mm-hmm.
There's none left anymore, but one particular friend in New York, one year, it's been quite a while back, he was quite a little older than I was.
Mm-hmm.
I sent him we always sent each other Christmas cards and wrote a letter.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent him one, and his sister answered it and said that he had passed away.
That's sad. That sucks. How long did this relationship last, or whatever?
Well, that relationship lasted as long as he lived. And there were several others that I wrote to quite frequently after the war, but we finally just kind of drifted apart.
Uh-huh. Okay. Did you join any veterans organization?
I belong to the VFW.
The VFW.
Post here in Springfield, 963.
That's
And I am on the color guard, and we're very busy with it, especially this time of year. I think we posted the colors 8 different times last week.
Okay. What did you do? What was your career after the war?
Well, I went farming,
Farming.
and then I went to work for a gas company, and then I went to this National LP Gas Institute, and was a LP gas serviceman for a while. But later on, I started farming again,
Mm-hmm.
and that didn't look real good, so I joined the Carpenters Union, and I'm almost eligible for a 45-year pen from the Carpenters Union. But I did continue to farm and keep livestock as long as I was able to take care of them.
Uh-huh.
I just sold my farm last year.
That's you. Okay. Where was your farm located at?
It was at Lewisburg,
In Lewisburg.
Missouri.
Do you think your military experience has influenced your thinking about war or just about the military in general?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
Oh, yes.
You like to elaborate on that, or?
Well, I can't think of anything offhand, but I'm sure I look at it different than
Just
people that was never
That
there.
Never served, yeah. What kind of activities does your post participate in?
Well, we have a business meeting the second Thursday of every month, and we have a social meeting the fourth Thursday of every month.
Okay.
And we generally have entertainment there for that, and we have a potluck meal. The post buys the meat and the drinks, and everybody else brings a dish.
Nice.
It's fun.
Where's that post located at?
It's on 2525 East Division, and it's just across the street from the downtown airport. It is a non-drinking, non-smoking post, which there's not very many that way.
Do you ever attend any kind of reunions?
They've never had a reunion for the ship I was on.
Really?
However, as being on the color guard, we have attended a lot of reunions for them. And one memorable one was they had a reunion for a carrier here in Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
And we posted the colors for it, and they run about the same area we did in the North Atlantic, and there was a chaplain that was aboard there I talked to quite a little, and I told him we took our ships to Florida to decommission them, and I knew they wasn't there anymore. I says, do you know what happened to them? He says, yes. He says, I lived right there. And he says, I have pictures of them tied up in the harbor. And he said most of them went to other countries, but he says there was a few that was salvaged.
Kind of interesting. How did your service, your time of service and experiences over there affect your life during and after?
Well, like I say, I'm sure I look at it different than I would if I hadn't have ever been there, but I can't really put my finger on how.
Okay. How did, whenever you got back from serving, how, was there an adjustment period, or?
Well, we didn't have anyone that was against. Everyone was for us.
Back then, okay.
And I had to hitchhike about 34 miles home from the railroad station, and nobody passed you. The first car come along and picked you up.
Really?
There was nobody passed you. And then when we was in Florida decommissioning them ships, we hitchhiked a little down there, and it was no trouble at all getting a ride. Anybody would pick you up.
Really supportive. That's nice. Is there anything else that hasn't been covered you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I think we covered it pretty well.
Pretty well.
One way I look at war different, I think, is I would have a lot more reservations about going to war than I would if I hadn't have ever served.
Oh, really?
Because I feel very sorry for the boys that's over there.
Yeah.
And war is terrible.
Yeah. If you had to do it again, would you have joined?
Yes, I would.
In a heartbeat?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.